here's the Majora's Mask I'm going to be making a mold of. So first I'm going to map out a little box that I'm going to put over it, so when I pour the mold into it, it won't spill over. So I designed it to where each side will be parallel to each other, so when I put straps around the whole entire mold, the straps will fit nicely. You'll see what I'm talking about when I actually make it. And these are the tension straps I'm going to be using. Alright, now I cut out a long piece of cardboard and I'm going to line that with the lines drawn on the bottom. I'm just going to bend it to create the walls. And once I have that done, I'm going to be working with clay now. Now the clay I use is an oil-based clay that has no sulfur in it. So oil-based clay means that it will never harden. If you try to heat it up, it'll just melt. And it has to be sulfur free. Otherwise, if it has sulfur in it, the mold will react with the sulfur and it will not cure. Cure means like harden. Alright, so now I'm putting down the clay all around the mask, and I'm making sure that it'll go underneath, the clay goes underneath all the little holes of the masks, because I want it to be flat. And so now I'm hot gluing the mold box around the mask so that, you know, when I pour it in, it won't spill over. Right. So here's the clay that I melted, and now I'm pouring it over the clay I set down. Now this isn't entirely necessary. I'm only doing this because I want the clay to look nice and flat. And so now I'm just pouring it all around the mask up until like it's halfway to the mask. Right now here I'm just flattening the clay with my finger. Just want the clay to be nice and flat. I'm also going to make sure that the clay is pushed up against the mask, because I don't want any cracks between the mask and the clay, otherwise the mold rubber will just flow right between those cracks and that won't make for a good mold. And then I forgot to plug up the holes in the mask, so right now I'm filling up the eye holes with clay. Otherwise, when I pour it onto the mask, it's just going to fall through the hole and go to the other side, so make sure you plug up any holes. Now here I'm using a Jenga block just to make keys. Now keys are important because they will help the mold halves align together. Now I'm going to set these keys all around the whole mask. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to work with my mold rubber. I chose Mold Star 16 Fast. It's a 1-to-1 mixed ratio, so I take equal amounts of both and I mix them together, and then it'll create the mold rubber. Now this next part I forgot to record, but basically what I did was I took the mold rubber and I poured it on the front of the mask, and I poured it to where it was half an inch to an inch above the highest part of the mask. Once the mold rubber hardens, I take off the cardboard wall and I flip it over. Then I'll take off all the clay that was on the back side. And then I added this blue plug right here. This is basically where I'm going to be pouring the liquid into the mask. When I'm pouring the mold rubber on this side of the mask, it's not going to go above this mold plug. This clay plug will essentially leave a hole in the mask for me to pour the liquid right into the mask through the mold. So now I'm reassembling the cardboard wall, and I'm going to use the tension straps to help me do that. I want to make sure that the wall hugs the rubber really tight. This is important so the new rubber does not flow into any cracks. I'm also going to use some clay to push the walls up against the mold so it'll make a tight fit. Next I'm going to use Ease Release 200, and I'm going to spray that on the silicone mold. Otherwise, if I pour another batch of that silicone mold onto it, it'll stick directly to it, and I don't want that. I want both mold halves to come apart. Okay, here I am measuring the mold rubber. I have equal amounts right here, and I'm going to pour the white one into a bigger tub, and then I'm going to pour the blue one into that tub and mix them all together. I need to mix these two parts together pretty fast. I have 6 minutes to do so, otherwise after 6 minutes it's going to start to get really hard. So after I pour in the blue mold, I'm going to mix it up really good, and I'm going to scrape the sides, and I'm going to scrape the bottom, and then it's going to, once I get one solid uniform color, I'm going to pour that onto the back side of the mold. So here I am pouring it onto the back side of the mask. I'm just pouring it in one spot, and I'm just going to allow the liquid rubber to fill up all the crevices of the mask. I'm going to mix and keep pouring this mold rubber until I'm about half an inch to an inch above the highest point of the mask. I also forgot to record this next part, so I have some drawings to show you. Once the top half has hardened, I'm going to take the clay out and it's going to leave this hole. And then I'm going to create a clay wall around the hole, and I'm going to use the Ease Release 200 again to make sure that the new silicone does not stick to this silicone. After it's sprayed, I'm just going to pour the new Mold Star 16 into the hole. Alright, so that's what you see there. And now I'm just taking off the cardboard wall around the mold. And once I'm done doing that, I'm just going to separate both mold halves. Now, separating both halves was kind of hard. I don't think I sprayed enough of the Ease Release 200. I could have also used Vaseline. Vaseline also works. That Ease Release 200 is basically Vaseline in a bottle. Alright, so I'm showing you a closer look at the detailings of the mask. The mold rubber picked up all the detail of both the front and the back of the mask. And then as you can see, there's the registration keys that I made. So those are going to fit right into these ones right here. And then I made cardboard backings for both sides, and this will help the tension straps hold both sides of the mold together. And I also made a hole in the cardboard for where the mold plug goes into. And as you can see, I'm pushing against all sides, making sure that the registration keys fit into each other. I'm going to put the cardboard back on top, and I'm going to take those tension straps and I'm going to wrap them around the whole mask. I'm going to wrap one for each side. Well, there goes one. Now I have two more sides to go. And this is why I wanted each opposing side to be parallel to each other, because it makes putting the straps on much easier. Here I'm making sure I can get the mold plug in nice and easy, and I can put the straps on it and make sure it stays in place. Now I'm ready to use smooth cast. This is what the mask is going to be made of. It's just a 1:1 mix ratio, and it'll start out as liquid and it'll harden to become a very durable and lightweight mask. Alright, so I put the funnel, so I'm ready to pour it in, and I mix both parts together, and I just pour it right in. It's a small batch. I'm going to be using small batches because I'm going to be making a rotational cast of the mask. This will make the mask hollow and even more lightweight. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to spin it 360 degrees, and I'm going to turn it to the next side and just repeat the process. So when 360 degrees, turn it. And I repeat the process for all the sides. Now I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to repeat the same process to make sure I get it on both sides of the mask. Here I'm going to be spinning it on its side like this so I can make sure the liquid gets into the horns of the mask. Also, I'm not actually making a mask right now, this is just for demonstrational purposes. Next, I'm going to flip it around like this to make sure it gets on the front and the back even more. I'm going to keep doing these steps for about 5 minutes. Once 5 minutes has passed, I'm going to put the funnel back in and pour more into it. Then I'm going to put the plug back into the hole and put the straps back on the plug and make sure it's nice and tight. Repeat the mixing steps again for 5 minutes. Then pour a third and final batch into the mask. Then I'm going to put the plug back in and secure it with the straps. For a third and final time, just mix it up again. I like to wait 15 minutes after I pour in the last batch. Now you want to peel the mold away from the mask very carefully. It's easier to pry the mold away from the mask rather than try to pull the mask out of the mold. As expected, it leaked a little, so I have to pull away some excess liquid plastic from the edges of the mask. But all I'll need to do is just sand that down and it'll be ready for painting, and then I can sell it. If you have any questions, just leave a comment down below. I'll be happy to answer anything. I'll be selling these masks on Etsy. I'll leave a link to my page in the description box. My DeviantArt page will also be there. And this was, I guess, a little sneak peek into my final Majora's Mask. I worked really hard on getting those horns close to its in-game appearance, and I decided to curve the top horns a bit. So that's how you do a 2-part mold and a rotational cast. Thanks for watching.